In this interview, I'm speaking to one of the greatest magicians of all time, in my opinion, Mr. David Williamson. Mr. David Williamson, how are you, sir?
I'm very well. I'm very happy to be here. My own home, in my underwear.
Just dressed from the waist up.
Yeah, put a jumper on.
So, this is kind of a weird interview for me to do, and this is where I get all kind of starry-eyed and mushy because I don't know if you must be aware of the fact that you've spawned a whole generation of magicians, and of which I am one.
Wait a minute, you don't mean that literally,
Not
right?
literally, no.
I don't remember any girls in England who gave me the time of day.
Not 45 years ago, anyway. So.
No.
But I think, to be fair, if you were to ask 99% of the magicians, their top 5 magicians, you would be in that list.
Well, that's a bit much, but
I don't think it is, and I'm not being sort of, I'm not flattering you for the sake of flattery. I just think, and I will, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why as well, because you're one of those few magicians who have technical ability, incredible technical ability, but are also really funny, also a really good performer. So I've flattered you enough now.
okay, boom, now we can continue.
Now we can continue. But my point, the whole point of that kind of intro,
ready to go on.
the whole point of that sort of for me was when you started out, what was your sort of focus in the magic? Were you a magic geek? Were you
I was absolutely just I was very young. Now, when did you start? Did you start when you were like 7 or 8 or 9 or something like that? Or was it later?
I kind of messed about with it as a kid, but really started sort of properly when I was an out-of-work actor, to be honest with you. That's how I got into it.
Really?
Yeah, so selling magic for Marvin.
Uh-huh. Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh,
With
great.
Andy Nyman and Anthony Owen and...
Yeah. Well, were you at like Hamleys and that sort
I
of
was in
thing?
Harrods for about a year, yeah.
Is that right? Oh my gosh. Yeah, I remember going by years ago when he kind of opened those little kiosks up and meeting some of those guys, yeah.
But that was that's the generation I'm talking about, because these are the guys who everyone I knew at the time, we all had your lecture from International, that was when you came over and did the lecture at International.
Right.
Everyone was doing Cards to Pocket, everyone was doing Ring on Rope, everyone was doing Rocky Raccoon.
Right. Well, those were the Michael Lamar, Daryl years, when those guys were real active too, traveling around lecturing. They kind of preceded me over here to Europe, over there to Europe and UK. And so that was the next, I was kind of at the tail end of that. John Carney, Daryl, Mike Amar, those kind of little cabal of young American close-up magicians hitting the lecture trail, and they forged a lot of the lecture trails through Europe, and I kind of came on their heels. So when Mike, this is to get off the subject of when I started, but yeah, when I started, I was completely immersed into it. I was very geeky about magic. That was, Woody Allen wrote a play years ago called The Floating Light Bulb. You ever heard of that or seen it?
No.
It's about a kid whose parents are always yelling in the other room, and there's a lot of turmoil around his life, but he had a magic book, and he wanted to perform magic, and it was kind of his escape from reality, And when I read that play in high school, I was like, wow, I can kind of relate to this. There's a lot of turmoil in my life, and magic was kind of an escape. So I just dove into it head first and didn't look back. I turned to my mom when I was 9 or 10. I said, I'm going to be a professional magician. And she would put me on buses to Pittsburgh or Kansas City or Dallas, Texas when I was, 14, 15, 16. And she'd call ahead, and this was back in the late 70s, she'd call ahead and make sure there was an organizer who was going to pick me up, and I'd stay in his home with his family. And you would never think of doing that today. I would never send my 13-year-old daughter on a Greyhound bus halfway across the country to some, magic festival or something. Forget about it. But back in the day, that's what kind of my mom was, single mom, and she saw this kid with this passion, and I had to go. I had to get to Kansas City on that weekend, and that was the only way to make it happen. And so, I was completely. I didn't look back, and any adversity that came my way, I ignored. And just was very, very passionate about it.
And so, did you sort of have did you, when you first, got into it, picked up a pack of cards, did you have that? Did you feel an immediate bond with it, and did it feel like something natural? Did it feel like that's what you were meant to do?
Well, in a way, yeah, it fit my personality. It just kind of. And now my brothers, like I have a younger brother, Gary, who he picked up the cards too at the same time because we were brothers and we were into the same things. He was one of those guys, he could pick up a guitar and then within 3 days he could be playing songs. And then he picked up a deck of cards and within 3 days he was doing pressure fans. It took me, 18 months to be able to do it. And then he would juggle. He could juggle 3 balls in about 2 days, and it took me 6 months. So he was more of a natural. But I made him get out of magic because I wanted it to be my thing. He was discouraging me because he was picking it up so quickly, and I wasn't. But I had to work at it a little bit. But no, yeah, eventually it became very natural to me, and became my identity through school. I was kind of a geeky kid, tall, very, very shy, and magic was my way to survive. Through.
So do you think the fact that it was hard earned for you made it more valuable to you? You had this brother who could do things, came easily, whereas for you it was a struggle and it was a...
Absolutely, yeah. I struggled, but also I worked really hard at it, and that was the only thing I did work hard at in my life, and I valued every goal that I made, fall shuffle or double lift. It was like, wow, this is my secret weapon against the world, this is going to get me through.
So so is that how you kind of pitched yourself a little bit? Did you set those goals? Did you say, right, this is... I mean, because even as we talk now, you're shuffling a packet of cards. I hope that's what you're doing.
Yeah. I'm playing with my shake weight.
Right.
Fill up my biceps. Yeah, no, it's always been my go-to stress reliever, my comfort zone, my blanket, a deck of cards, fondling a deck of cards, as whenever I'm stressed or anxious or... That's what I did.
Waiting in an airport, I saw on one of your tweets recently, practicing your cover pass or something you were doing.
What's that?
You've tweeted that you were practicing some...
Oh, I was sitting in an airport. I remember that. I had an 8-hour layover in an airport.
Practicing your Erdnase shift or something like that.
Yeah. Constantly.
So what, you were this kid, you
kind of... I practiced, and I've been practicing for 40 years, and along come the Buck twins, and they do things with a deck of cards that's inhuman. I can't believe it. I feel pretty good about myself, and then I'll look at Derry Delgado or Ben Earl or somebody like this, just take a deck of cards out and give it a cut with such finesse, and I just get depressed. I feel like a caveman all over again,
Well, the whole, what is it, the Hofzinser thing where he saw the kid playing the violin and then decided to give up the violin and become a magician. That was...
Oh, is that right?
That was apparently, I think it was Hofzinser, it was one of them. But without your sort of influence...
I want to give up cards and go pick up the violin.
But so actually, we'll get with the Buck twins. I mean, how do you sort of see these guys doing this stuff? And I mean, how do you see it all going with that? Because technically, had that been around where you were learning, that's what maybe what you would have done.
That's what I would be doing. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the time for that. It's the time. And I read something interesting recently. A cheeseburger was only possible when it was invented. It wasn't possible 300 years ago because the people who made the cheese, it wasn't easy to get a slice of cheese together with a bun, with a patty and the pickles and the ketchup and the mustard. It didn't exist, or they were too hard to move around. A cheeseburger came together when all the ingredients were ready, when it was easy to produce and easy to market and easy to get the... So I think it's the same thing with the Buck twins. This technology, the internet has made... They've gone viral. The kids there's this feedback loop that's much faster than what we had. Di Vernon would tell T. Nelson Downs something, and he'd have to write a letter, and they'd go back and forth for 6 months, sussing out the details of some move that neither one really wants to give up. Or finally, they meet every 2 years, and finally, I get to see that move you've been writing about, and that's interesting. I think I'll show it to Fawcett Ross when I see him in 6 months, and things progress very slowly. Now it's just immediate,
Is that a good thing?
Kids go out, it's almost like crowdsourcing. They'll do a move, put it out there, these kids hack it. It's like a machine, a giant magic sleight of hand machine, hack it, send videos back to the Buck twins, and they'll hack, improve that. And then within a weekend, these incredible flourishes or moves or, effects have been sussed out. It's pretty amazing.
But do you think that's a good thing for sort of magic in general, or do you think it's losing something in the translation?
I don't think anybody who comes to magic with, enthusiasm is a bad thing, in general.
Right.
Yeah, old ways. I, I, I see so many guys who are, intimidated by all this, and it's easy to back into your comfortable corner and lash out and say that's not the way it should be. Well, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And but not everybody who does fancy cuts and puts really cool videos to really cool music with great effects and great skill wants to be a professional magician and work down at the Lions Club for $100 and do birthday parties in old folks' homes like we did, or work on the street. And that's not their goal. Their goal is to put a cool video out there, and that's it. That's the end.
So when with the performance, because I mean, if there is an argument I have against the whole internet thing, and there's not, because I think that, I mean, I think the Buck Twins are phenomenal. I think the stuff they do is incredible. But the thing that's kind of almost feels like Magic's lacking a bit now is the performance side of it, and we're kind of we're missing a lot of. And I've had this moan with everybody I've spoken to, pretty much.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it yo-yos. I mean, it's like Magic's always been going in peaks and valleys and waves and so forth. And right now, the technical side is really surging. And the Buck Twins do it with so much style. These guys are basically designers, aren't they?
Yeah.
Look at their website. Look, they're putting out these really cool playing cards that they've designed. T-shirts. They have their own designer nail clippers.
Hand cream now.
Yeah, beautiful. And it's being picked up not just by Magic websites, but by design and men's grooming websites and things like that. They're becoming a brand. They're really smart, and they design card flourishes the way they might design a T-shirt, graphic or something like that. It's amazing. It's really nice. They have a lot of taste, and those are the guys who got into it. And look what they're doing. They put together Magic Con. They're starting to get it. They've read Erdnase. Now they sell Erdnase on their website, and they bring people like John Carney and myself and many other people to their website to teach their fans, their young fans, the deeper part of Magic. So they've kind of got the religion,
yeah,
and now they're kind of ushering in the next generation, kind of bringing them in the door and saying, look what all is available. It's not just these cool cuts, but there's a deeper art of Magic that we're all involved in too. So,
and kind of the harder part as well. I mean, you said when you started, you were painfully shy, and
yeah.
But having just seen you do the international convention. And having seen you perform live on a number of occasions, you're not shy anymore, are you, Dave? Let's cut to the chase. You're not shy.
No, I'm not. Well, I am. Like, I'm working on this. Like right now, I just got off this cruise ship, and I'm working a few cruise ships this year for the first time in 20 years. I did one 20 years ago, and I hated it, and I never wanted to do them again. And I've gotten calls over the years by cruise ship agents saying, "Hey, you want to do ships?" And I've always said, "No, no way, forget it. I'm a landlubber. I hate the whole idea." And then the economy went crash, and my corporate shows kind of, started going away. I've been making my living doing mostly corporate shows for the past, 25 years. And so luckily the agents kept calling, and I did some. Now I'm doing a few cruise ships, and it's a whole different experience. I don't have to dance with old ladies and call bingo anymore. They have these beautiful modern theaters, and they pay well and give you a nice room, and it's actually a very nice situation. But anyway, my point being, I still am socially very shy, because when I'm not on stage, I'm not walking around the ship glad-handing and talking and chatting up people, and like other performers I know who are really great at that, I just go hide in my cave and shuffle my cards like I've always done. So I can turn it on. I've learned to, being a professional magician, I learned to turn the personality on when I need it on stage, but off stage, I still, I can't hold a conversation more than 10 minutes without picking up a deck of cards. It's pretty sad.
So when did that whole kind of not wacky crazy, I hate that, but when did that sort of performing?
It didn't just kick in. It was when I got out in the world and started trying to make a living with Magic. I mean,
it was. You were overcompensating for the shyness, because sometimes that kind of over exuberance.
I'm sure early on I did. I'm sure early on I was scared of people because I just went too far. And I remember my first time John Fisher hired me to be on this series he did with Rudy Kobe and Jeff Hobson.
Best of Magic, wasn't it?
No, not Best of Magic. It was Magic Comedy Strip.
Magic, right? Yeah.
I also did Best of Magic, but I think it was magic comedy strip. Oh, maybe it was Best of I forget which series I was. But my first time in front of the English audience, I came out of there like a cannon. Hey, folks, how you doing? Being the typical American brash, and they just recoiled in horror at me. And I came, and it was a dress rehearsal, but they filmed it. And I came backstage shaken and white, and John put his arm around me. He goes, "It's okay, you're American. You don't quite get it yet." He goes, "I suggest," he was a real gentleman, he said, "I suggest this time you go out softly and ingratiate yourself for a few minutes, and then you can slowly ratchet up the Williamson, And I did the second time, and it worked. And then they accepted me. But he was absolutely right. I was coming on too strong, especially for this English audience.
But that stood you in good stead, though, isn't it? 'Cause, I mean, that's kind of your trademark now. People come, certainly at conventions for magicians, it's kind of right. What's he going to do this time?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's become my kind of little forte at the magic convention. So magicians who know me from magic conventions know one aspect of me, and that's the Williamson will do anything for a laugh and try a premise out, take it to its end, even when it stops working, he'll keep going. And that's the fun I've had because I know, and I've said this before, it's in the magic convention is the safety zone. It's a bubble. It's a family. You're a big dysfunctional family. Even when I've gone way over the line, they've always brought me back in. They say it's okay, Williamson. They'll slap my hand, but you're still part of the family. They know that I have nowhere else to go. They can't throw me to the curb. So I've had really good responses at magic conventions and really bad ones. I've fallen flat on my face so many times, but that's where I've kind of learned the boundaries, because by stepping over them. But my point is the magic conventions being my kind of experimental laboratory.
So would you say that conventions you're kind of pretty fearless then?
Basically, yeah.
You'll do anything.
Yeah, I realize that I have nothing to lose by going for it at a magic convention. What's the worst that can happen? Well, I've had that. And guess what? They invited me back the next year, and my friends are still my friends, and they all make fun of me at the pub afterwards, and I enjoy that aspect of it too. So, yeah, being afraid not to fail is kind of my whole thing, and I kind of wear that as a badge of honor. And I encourage my other magic friends, to take more risks. Guys who I really admire, who are fantastic, but I see them playing it too safe sometimes. And I was like, you know what? It's not so bad here in the deep end. You're not going to drown. People jump in and save you. Don't worry about it. Take the risk. And
I mean, do you think that's true generally, mate? I mean, because
yeah,
I just had a conversation with Andrew O'Connor, and he was talking about the fact that magic tends to stay within its, it hasn't really moved on. It's moving on, you say, because of the technology. But in terms of, do you think magicians are too scared to sort of step out of the, because once you have a trick, you have a trick, don't you? That's your thing. That's kind of
my whole point with like talking about the Buck twins. It all comes around. If you listen to the old guys too much, you're not going to go forward. I hope the Buck twins and the young people come in. Don't listen to me or you or even the older established guys, Paul Daniels or whoever gives them advice. I hope they ignore it and just because that's how you get progress.
Yeah.
Because go out and some will succeed, some will fail. And
so, because what's the thing with the conventions now for you as well is I've noticed you do less and less magic at them.
Right.
But that's probably a badge earned, though, isn't it? Isn't that
magic? I mean, if I go out and do a straight trick, there's zero interest for me.
Right. Okay, but for you, I mean,
we know how he did it, but he did it very nicely. And golf claps. I have no interest in doing that. To proving that I can do a trick from A to Z without.
But I mean, do you never sort of feel guilty about putting the comedy over the magic? It's not a.
No, at this point for me, it's just about the sound coming back from the audience. It's all about the reaction.
Yeah.
And I really don't care how I get that reaction.
So if I were to see you for a non-magic audience, I mean, saying that, you see, David, I say for a non-magic audience, I saw you in Lisbon.
Yeah.
And you were no different on the street.
That might be the fact because it was a hybrid magic convention. All my friends, all you guys were standing there watching. So
right.
So I knew I was kind of half playing to you guys and half playing to the.
But I mean, because you did the Lewis thing before that, didn't you? You did the Coimbra thing, and there's video of you on a bus. I've seen these videos of you doing this kind of tour of Coimbra on a tram or a bus and just going.
Oh right, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I did on his show. then that came about because years ago at FISM Lisbon, he had a camera crew taking candid shots at the FISM convention. And all the shots were just people going like this or going like this. And they would show these videos between acts at the FISM convention, and people going like this. And after 2 days of that, Luis grabbed me and goes, "This is ridiculous. There's no interesting footage being shown on our little candid strolls through the convention." He goes, "Go out there with the cameraman and make some stuff happen." So I got in fist fights with people and threw trash, and just, we made funny videos with David Acker and Matt King and Billy McComb and stuff. And we just all did all these crazy vignettes, and it was so much fun, and people were laughing so much. They couldn't wait for the act to finish so they could see the next video, at FISM basically. But then after that, Luis invited me back to Portugal to be on his TV show, and we took a camera crew all over Portugal and filmed all these crazy little vignettes of me messing with the local folks in each town, That's where that came from.
Right, because as I say, just watching you do the street stuff. Had you done the kind of street thing before? I know.
No, the first time. I turned to Gazzo, who was dry as a bone out there in the Lisbon in the August. What was that, August or something?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I was soaked to the bone. I was sweating out of every pore. And I said, "Gazzo, I'm an indoor man. How do you do this?" He was dry as but that was a real lesson for me, actually. I'd never, part of me had always wanted to do street performing. When I was a teenager, I came to Europe for the first time, and I did a little bit. I dabbled at it in different European towns. I would go to the Cathedral Square, and I tried to act like I was European. I didn't speak, and I did a little magic for the American tourists. I did that for about 2 months. And it was fun. I really kind of enjoyed it. And I always thought, wow, I could do this. I could travel around the world and do street magic. And I had a romantic notion about it. But it never happened. I never ended up doing that. I ended up going back home and doing other things. But so it was a real lesson to watch all you guys who were real good at the street and be able to do it, So
it was a tough one for me, that, because you were there, Gazzo was there, which meant that 85% of the material I did was out the window because
great stuff. You had great stuff that I'd never seen, so it was fantastic.
Well, I was having to work. Because that was the year because Rich McDougall was there as well, and we were all just working on new stuff desperately.
Yeah, all of us were. Yeah, exactly.
It was great. It was great fun.
It was a blast.
So, going on to sticking with this comedy thing. You're saying it's kind of all about the feedback from the audience. If you had to make that choice, and you don't, but if you had to make that choice between comedy and magic.
Well, I still love magic, and it's not like I just sacrifice. I hope people don't see me as sacrificing the magic for. At magic conventions, I do. Obviously, at magic conventions, I sacrifice the magic for the comedy. I spoof it, I burlesque it, and because it's all an in-joke, and I have an audience there who's ready for in-jokes. But for the layman, no, I want to fool them really hard, and I think I do, but I want them to laugh a lot, and then at one point go, "What the, So that's my goal, and I try to push, use the comedy to push the magic and so forth, and vice versa, and create situations. But, Tamarice gave a great lecture years ago where he had about a little chart, and he was talking about how comedy should, push the magic and not sacrifice the magic, the humor kind of drives the humor and vice versa, but don't kill the effect. But every time he made a point, so I'm sitting in the audience, he goes, "And you should do this way, except for Williamson. And then the rule is this," and he pointed to me, "except for Williamson." So he kept acting like I was the exception to the rule, and I don't know quite if he meant that in a good way or a bad way. So I didn't quite understand what he was saying, but.
But you never felt like. Have you ever done straight stand-up?
But I know the perception is that I, clown around a bit too much and the magic suffers. And you know what? If I get a bigger reaction from that from an audience and bookers remember me more, and so be it.
So have you ever done just straight stand-up? Have you ever walked out on stage without a packet of cards in your pocket and done straight? One time. And how was that?
And it was horrible. It was the scariest thing I've ever done in my life, and I haven't done it since. And it was years ago. I lived in Washington, D.C., and I said to my wife, I said, "You know what? Everybody keeps telling me how funny I am and that I should do stand-up and I should work comedy clubs and stuff. And so I guess I got to go out there and start and try it." So I went to this open mic night at a Washington, D.C. comedy club, and they pulled the numbers out of the hat to see which order you go on. I got the last one. I got number 12. Well, number 11's on stage, and the guy made an announcement like, here's our last act, and people are paying their bills and putting their coats on while this guy's finishing up. And I said, wait, what about me? To the MC, he goes, oh, you don't still want to go on, do you? I said, I've been here for 3 hours. Yeah, I want to go. All right. And then he got up there and he goes, sit down, everybody, sit back down. This guy, And then he said, oh, a local professional is in the house and he wants to do a few minutes. And I go, how does he know that I'm a professional? I gave a fake name and everything. And he introduced a buddy of his who had just walked in the door. So his friend got up and did 10 minutes. And then I said, what about me? Because you don't still want to go on, do you? I should have just gone home at that point and gave it a fair shot. But I, like an idiot, I thought, no, I'm here. I'm going to do it. So I played to like 6 people who didn't want to be there. And it was just awful and just sour.
Had you written gags? Had you sat and written a script?
Yeah, I had some premises in my head that I wanted to talk about. I wrote some gags, and I had about, 10 minutes of stuff I wanted to talk about. And I thought I could, rely on my fumes and my comic persona to get through these premises and kind of write it on the stage, kind of like the way I do in magic conventions and so forth. But it just went nowhere. They didn't want to be there, and neither did I at that point, so... But I never gave it a fair shake. So, yeah, I kind of think I wish I would have kind of gone that direction more. And the other thing is, every time I worked the Magic Castle, out there in L.A., all these producers and writers and actors come to the castle a lot who aren't in magic. And I can't tell you how many times this has happened to me. I'll work the castle, and some guy will come up, an agent or a producer, and give me a business card and go, oh, my God, we have a part for you. Your character's perfect, and you'd be great in this show that we're doing or this commercial. And I said, no, I'm not an actor. I've tried. I'm not an actor. I can't memorize lines. I can't be anybody other than myself. And finally, one guy convinced me to come out to the Fox studios and audition for this sitcom they were writing. And I tried to read through this script and do what they said. And he goes, what happened to the guy on stage last night? And I said, yeah, he's back on the stage. I told you, I'm not an actor. That's a whole skill set. Those are muscles I've never exercised. It's something I just can't do, or I have so much respect for actors. You said you were an actor.
Yeah.
And would you agree that it's a whole different set of skills?
I suppose it's difficult for me to say because I've always done it, so...
Yeah, you've always done it, so you've internalized all that. But for me, I'm too self-aware, too self-conscious to inhibit the, body of another character. So I can't do it. I can't be anybody other than myself. So I've been going for all these years on this just little narrow road that I've built for myself, but I know there's a wider world out there that, if I worked hard at it, I could fit into and, try other things. And I know a lot of magicians who act and actors who do magic and comics who act.
Because, you've got to look at guys like Steve Martin. He did all right, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. He was a big influence on me. I loved Steve Martin.
And a great magician by all accounts. I don't know whether that's true. I don't know if you've met him.
I've never met him. No, I don't know.
Because apparently a good magician. I don't know. He's a very, very good autobiography. But
there's all the right guys. Yeah.
So, do you think magic has to be funny? Have you?
No, I don't think so at all. That's just the way I approach it. No. Some of the best magicians get laughs just out of surprise. I wouldn't call Darwin Ortiz, a funny guy, but I have seen him in front of laymen where I wouldn't want to follow him. His character and his presentation was so pitch perfect for that group. For somebody to try to follow what he did, he was getting standing ovations, and he would get huge laughs at small little moments that he would create within his world and within his character. But he's not some outgoing, crazy clown, but he was getting, anybody can use humor, in their magic. And I haven't seen too many magic performances where it's all tension, but I know that a lot of mentalists kind of play on that. But even the best mentalists, have comic relief.
Yeah, because
because it's a ridiculous situation to begin with, but except for David Blaine, I guess I don't see him getting a big laughs, but
no, but there you go. Yeah, that's a different thing. Have you done much TV stuff? Did you find, or was that something that again didn't sort of suit your?
Yeah, I'm really horrible on TV. Ask anybody who's trying to have me on their show. I'm just all over the map. I don't know where the camera is. I don't pause enough for them to switch a shot or to be able to edit later. I'm just too frenetic. And John Fisher had a hard time, training me to calm down and slow down and stand still. And when I did Stuff the White Rabbit, they had the hardest time. They had to cut a lot of stuff that I did because it was just too, the cameramen were getting too, and I haven't learned, no, I'm not good on TV. I don't like to watch myself, and I'm too self-conscious because I know the camera's burning everything I do. And I watch guys who go on these TV shows and they do these beautiful performances and they're so savvy. I mean, Ricky Jay actually said to me once, he said, you have to, if you're going to do magic on TV, you have to be an asshole. What he meant by that is you have to be a tyrant for that. You have to make the director spend 10 minutes with you. And so he understands the angles that you demand. And you have to have a person in the booth standing next to the director, a friend who understands the angles. And you have to make all these demands. This was his point of view.
Right.
So they don't screw you up, because they will. Because they don't care about the things you care about, to make the magic look good.
Because you just had, in the States, you just had that whole series on, I don't know, and it was not the Tonight Show, was it? Which one of your...
And yeah.
Was it Letterman, was it?
Had the Magic Week, had the Close-Up Magic Week on the Letterman show, the late
Yeah.
night. Carney was on it, and Michael Amar, and Stephen Cohen. And
So, were you up for that, or...?
No. But John did it, and they called him, and they said, this is a perfect example. You talked to John Carney yourself about this. I don't want to retell his stories, but basically, they said, we want you to do Close-Up Magic on the Letterman show. It was great. I assume you're going to have a table and a couple chairs. No. You're going to do it at Dave's desk. Oh, well, can I stand up kind of so that I can? No, you can't. Well, I have some tricks that would work perfect from that angle. No, we want you to do this trick. And he goes, well, I'd have to learn it with my other hand. Well, do you want to be on the show or don't you? Well, I know that there's a big well on his desk that's in the way. There's just a little sliver. He's got a big indentation in his desk. We're going to cover that with a mat. No, you have to sit down as if you were a guest on the show. They put all these roadblocks. And it's like, what, do you want magic on your show? Or do you want us to be in our best light or not? And it was just a horrible situation. And they promised John noticed an overhead camera pointing right down inside his bag where he's going to get his final load from for this great cup routine he does. And he did learn it. John's ambidextrous, but he still had to learn the trick with the opposite hands just to be on this show. Because that's the only trick that they wanted, and that's the one they wanted him to do. And so he jumped through all their hoops, and he saw that camera, and he said, look, you got a camera looking down into the bag. You can see my final load, and you're going to see me. We won't use it. Don't worry. We're here to make you look good. Well, sure enough, when the show aired, that's the shot they used at the moment he was loading. It was just the worst thing you could possibly. John came off great. He was so relaxed and natural on camera, and his charm probably covered all that. But still, technically, they just didn't give a shit.
And do you tend to avoid it because of that? Then do you find?
No, I don't avoid it. No, if anybody offered me TV, it's worth its weight in gold, a national TV spot. It'd be crazy to avoid it. But you do the best you can, and I'm just not good at it. That's all I'm saying.
So if you, you seem to have spent a lot of time saying, I'm not good at this, I don't do that.
That's true.
And yet, I started off by telling you that you were the guy who'd spawned an entire generation of magicians. Well,
that's because they've seen me at magic conventions, and I think I was kind of a fresh young face, and I had a lot of energy, and that kind of thing. So I think I was the new thing.
But I don't know. I think you've been a bit hard on yourself. To be honest with you. I don't know. Would you do things differently then? If you kind of, if you went back now and you could do things differently, would you take a different route, or would you just think your personality would override all of that? And
oh, I have no idea. I never, I don't think about it that much. I'm not very good at self-examination too much, but no, I'm sure I would probably do everything pretty much the same. I'm just kind of plowing forward. That's all, stumbling forward the best I can. I don't have a master plan. I'm not I'm not an organized thinker at all. It's just experience has taught me. It's like a snowball. I gain experience, so I gain a few skills, each season.
So do you just tend to get, you said now you're doing the cruises again. Is that something you're focused on now, or is that?
Really focused on it. It's just that's where the work's coming from right now, this year.
Right.
I don't have a master plan. I don't have, that's it's kind of a sad reality in my life. We've just been kind of floating along. I have 2 kids who are growing up, and I'm kind of focused on them, and other things than my career. My career is going along just fine. I'm not famous. I'm not rich. I'm not. I don't have deals in the works for TV shows or books or webisodes or I don't even have a website. That's how unorganized I am. I'm trying to figure out how to get a halfway decent website up so people can find me.
WordPress is what you need.
WordPress, that's what I hear. I've been playing with Rapid Weaver.
Ah, WordPress is what you want.
Is that right?
That's what all of this is on. Yeah, I do everything on WordPress. But
Okay, all right. Yeah, I know what it is. Yeah, I'm going to look into that.
It's definitely worth it. So, did you ever do the trade show thing?
Yeah, years ago when I first started in the corporate market, I wanted to be trade show boy. So I did lots of trade shows. There used to be a big trade show in the computer industry called Comdex in Vegas, and I did that every year for a long time. So during the roaring 90s, I did a lot of trade shows, and I hated it.
Really?
Yeah, of course. It's like a job, 8 hours a day, standing there with a boss looking over your shoulder, waiting for you to produce. A lot of pressure. It's like, man, I got into magic so I wouldn't have to have a job. It felt like a job, memorizing scripts and so forth. All the things I'm not good at. But I was young and stupid, and I did it. And then I saw guys who were much better at me than I was. I wasn't turned out that I wasn't really made for that. But I did plenty of them, and it was good money. I'm glad I did it. It was good experience. But I think I've kind of settled into what I'm best at is like an after dinner kind of banquet show. You throw me in a banquet with 300 or 400 people at a business event or something like that, and give me a few bullet points on their company, and I'll weave them kind of through my show and make sure everybody has a good time. And that's kind of the way I've made my living for the past couple decades, really, for the most part.
Are you still doing the whole? You did that speaker thing as well, didn't you? Do you do that much?
Yeah, every once in a while I still do that, where I come in as an expert on some subject or another, and I'll just kind of totally spoof their industry. I used to do this thing. I did a whole tour for McDonald's as an expert in stress management, and they would introduce me as a consultant and give my credits and the books I've written, and people immediately, lower their expectations. They're like, oh my God, we're going to settle in for 40 minutes of charging graphs from some egghead from some stress technology institute. And slowly they would realize I'm an idiot. I'm completely stressed out because my slides aren't there, and they just watch me dissemble in front of them. And eventually it morphs into my magic routine. They realize they've been had. So it's a funny way for a business group, it's actually a great way, especially at morning meetings and so forth, to introduce me as someone else in the industry. And they love the fact that I'm not really a stress expert. And it's the easiest audience in the world.
So you lowered their expectations and then exceeded them, isn't it?
Exactly. That's my.
Did you enjoy that? Did you enjoy doing those?
Oh, absolutely. I still do those. Yeah, it's really fun. It's really fun. And a friend of mine, Dan Satchoff, who's a bit of an amateur magician, but he's a great actor and singer and improv comic out of L.A. We hooked up at a few corporate shows when we were hired to do some corporate videos and things. But we've paired up and we've made a little show called Waiter Show, where we go into corporate events as the wait staff, and we muck about and escalate our gags and cause a lot of trouble. And eventually we become the final stage show because the magician didn't show up. So we're charged with doing the show, and I'm the maitre d', and he's the hapless new hired busboy. It's almost like a Faulty Towers kind of situation.
Because I do that in the UK. I've done a few of those in the UK.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. It's a very popular thing.
Do you know what? It's funny because I hate it.
Well, when I first did it, I realized that, whoa, there's a whole different skill set here, too. And it's an art not to blow the gag too soon. And it's really hard, it's really because they see a waiter and you're invisible, basically. They treat you like crap. And it's very tense. Yeah, it can be very tense. But I got over all my fears, and now it's good fun, especially now that I have a partner and we react to each other rather than playing gags on the audience as much. He'll be over there drinking Windex or, inappropriately eating off dirty plates or whatever it is that we've done. We have a whole lot of gags that escalate.
You see, the thing for me is because I hate practical jokes, so.
Ah, right, yeah.
So I struggle with it.
I don't mind.
But then you work for Bill Hers, and apparently he's the.
Who's that?
Bill Hers apparently is the practical joke.
Oh yeah, he's a big practical joker. But these aren't necessarily practical jokes, but the way I look at it is once they realize that they've been had, like later in the evening when they realize we're hired entertainment, they look upon what we did in a different light, and it's okay, you know. But we don't make fun of. We're very careful. I hope we're not just playing gags on people, practical jokes. We're the butt of most of the jokes ourselves, and they're just spectators to our
Right.
crazy antics. You know, we're not so much, spitting on people's food or we're not making fun of them. We're making fun of ourselves.
Because there
Usually.
was a group in the UK called Spanner in the Works. Did you ever?
I've heard of them. Yeah,
And they
yeah.
apparently they got, I don't know if this is right, but they got into quite a bit of trouble because they used to do some incredible.
Oh, yeah, you have to be careful. I know. Well, Jay Marshall came to me years ago, and he handed me this little pamphlet called Soup's On that they had at Magic Ink. And he said, nobody's doing this anymore. It was very popular in the 50s in Chicago. This guy wrote a little book about the Comedy Waiter Act and gags he used to do for these blue-collar kind of outings. He said, if you get punched or thrown in the pool by the end of the night, you're a success. You know, that's your goal. His was more of a rude waiter thing. But we've lightened it up and made it more of a light comedy magic waiter, you know. But we end up with a magic show that we do in character, you know. It's really fun.
But that's acting. I mean, you say you don't, all of this. It sounds like the stuff that you enjoy is. It's when you're creating it's when you're actually creating it.
That's been great. You're right. It's something Dan forced me. You know, he's a serious actor, so he's used to rehearsal, which is a foreign idea to me. So we actually rented a rehearsal space in LA, and I went out there for a month, and we actually rehearsed this act every day for several hours a day. And then we went out and performed it at different places for no money, you know, and trialed it here and there, and did it actually at the Magic Castle for a little while. And so he was my taskmaster. He was kind of directed that whole thing and forced me to think about it and rehearse. And we actually had songs in it at one point, and all kinds of cues and bits of business that were rehearsed. So it was really a very, for the first time, a collaborative, creative kind of thing that I haven't had for a long time, because I've been working solo all these years, and answering one.
Do you think that idea that because once you've rehearsed it and once you've been forced to rehearse something new and it becomes second nature, that then you can relax into what you're doing, which is why you're so relaxed at the magic conventions, and it's kind of why you don't want to do the acting on TV? And
Yeah. I mean, over time, it takes me a while to get comfortable with these situations. But yeah, absolutely.
So, with sort of going back to the sort of magic thing, I mean, what do you think makes? This is my kind of. I have two sort of stock questions, really. I mean, what is magic to you, and what does it mean to you, and what has it meant to you, and in terms of, I mean, what's great magic? What is there anything? Can it be defined?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I can only point to examples of what I think great magic is. It's when Del Rey put the dice in the cup, and he's stacking the dice, and he slides the cup over to me, and I lift the cup, and there's no dice there, and it felt like somebody punched me in the solar plexus. It was a physical reaction. I almost fell out of my chair involuntarily. And when Goshman, the first time he says, pick up the salt shaker, and I pick it up, and the coin is under there that was not there a minute ago. And then I pick it up again, and it's under there again. I could have sworn I was watching his hands, And moments like that. The first time I saw lemons come out at the end of the cups and balls, where the hell did those come from, Moments like that, they make a big impact. I mean, even when I was a kid, I tell the story before, the kid show magician, Shepard the Great, came to our elementary school. I was 4 years old. And he shows this mylar tube. He opens it up and closes it, and he puts a plume. What's a plume? But he puts a yellow plume, feathered stick into the top, and it comes out red, the bottom. Then he puts a blue one in the top, and it comes out yellow. And I'm starting to catch on to the one-ahead principle. And he puts a green one in the top, and I turn to my friend. I say, this next one's going to be blue, because I saw the pattern. And he pulls it out, and it's silver. And then he shows the mylar tube again. And again, the punch to the solar plexus, So for me, it's been about being fooled hard. Now, there are also some great magical moments. I remember watching Doug Henning do the simplest tricks, a cut and restored rope, or David Copperfield, the first time I saw him do some of his great illusions, So, yeah, there's definitely, I do love magic. I love magic performed well. And when I see it, I saw John Carney work, I don't know, maybe it was 15 or 20 years ago now, just in the Magic Castle, in the close-up room, just one of his standard performances. But it was done so well, and it was so pitch perfect, and every effect was pointed up, and the audience reactions they were just so amazed. And I was sitting there thinking, it doesn't get better than this. This is magic at its highest form. He was a gentleman. He was just presenting these little miracles to people, and it was hitting them as hard as I had been hit before. I could understand what they were going through. So to me, that's what magic is. It's a human connection. It's a piece of theater that only we can provide, because it feels half real. You go to a play, none of it's real. But when you're sitting next to a magician, and for me, it comes down to close-up magic. To me, that's my favorite form of it. But it's all the same, really, isn't it? We all rely on the same principles. So I don't know. I'm fumbling around for words for it, but I do have an emotional connection to the art of magic. I really do love it.
No, but I think that's it. And I mean, the expression that it's half real is a great one. I think you're absolutely right. But it's the word connection that you used is really important.
Well, I think that's the important part. And it's a shame I see so many magicians who technically are great and theatrically are great, but there's no connection to the audience. There's no that human connection. And I think that's what performing arts. That's what we strive to do, is like connect up with other human beings on a level that they care about, where there's interest and they're engaged. And too often, a lot of performing arts fall short. It's just a lot of dazzle and so forth. But you leave the theater feeling empty. But close-up magic, we have a unique, and even street magic. I've seen people, make connections on the street that are very, very deep, and you get people to care about you, and then, and care about what you're doing. And if it can turn around and provide some meaning for them at that moment, it doesn't take much for people to perceive meaning, in some little piece of theater. It doesn't take much. If you take the effort to go, now what's going to mean something to these people? Why should they care about what I'm doing? Then you've got something. And I have this idea that, all of my tricks, like in my stand-up show, and the close-up magicians do this for years, it's all about grabbing somebody's wrist. What's your name? Mary. Do me a favor, Mary. Shuffle and you're making these human connections. Close-up magic is all about that. And when I see this quote-unquote theatrical close-up magic, where you sit down and shut up and just watch, right? Don't interact. Don't interrupt. I'm going to do magic at you. I don't like that. You're just squandering 99% of the opportunity presented to you to improvise, or to apparently improvise, or to create organic moments. It's not scripted. My biggest fear is that somebody feels like what I did for them, I did last night for somebody else, and I'm going to do tomorrow night for somebody else. If they feel that way, then that kills me. I don't want to be that guy. That's why I don't like puns or jokes that feel like they've been pre-written, that are a little too clever, too cute, or props that are too clever and too cute. It's like, it feels like there's a train and I'm just one stop on the way, and why should I care? Because it's not special for me. But if it feels organic, and I always come down to the example, there's a coin and bottle routine, and I don't know who put it together, but it's a little miniature liquor bottle from the airplane, and it's all in a velvet bag, and you have tweezers, and you have a little funnel, and there's some little puns about the thing. It's a self-contained little coin in the bottle routine with pre-written jokes and all these little props that are kind of cutesy that are out there. And just 99% of humanity doesn't give a shit about, that what you're about to do or what you're doing. But if you see a guy standing there drinking a Heineken and you say, hey, when that bottle's empty, let me know. I want to try something. I don't know if it'll work, but I want to try something. And meanwhile, you turn to this guy, what's the biggest coin you have in your pocket? Okay, hang on to that. Let me know when that bottle's empty, and then you continue doing a card trick. And then the guy goes, hey, I got an empty bottle here. Oh, did you find a big coin? Yes. Okay, we're going to try. And it feels organic. It feels like, then it has meaning for them.
Excellent.
And
perfect advice. No, it's great, David. I mean, I'm going to let you go now because I've wasted enough of your time. But I think and it's great. It's great to hear, and it's great to hear you. I mean, for me, having been a street performer, and it's always been about making connections with people, and that's something which I think you did when I first saw you perform. Instantly, there was something that I don't know.
Well, that's what keeps it interesting from our point of view too, right? I mean, if you just went out like a robot every day, you'd quickly quit this job. There's not enough money in it too.
No, exactly.
For me at least. But that's my catharsis. Now it's therapy. I can't wait to get up on stage and have playtime, and express my rage or my joy or whatever, and have people in the audience to share it with me. And that's what keeps me going.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time, David. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Good luck with the website. I can't wait to check.
No worries at all. Thank you very much. Take care.
Okay. Take care, Pete.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye. A huge thank you to Dave for taking the time to speak to me. And remember, you can see and hear more interviews like this at www.magicstateofmind.com.